Okay, welcome everyone to our very first devlog for our new project, codename Relatable Content. For this first devlog, we want to try to make a very simple prop for our bird friend to walk around. And what I decided to do is one of these like pillars, as you can see. It's nothing very complex. I just want it to be a little bit cartoony. I don't want it to be quite realistic, but I do want it to have like a sort of realistic texture to it. Think about it as if it was sort of made of like plasticine or something like clay, like a stop motion thing. So what we're going to do is that we're going to start with Blender, we're going to scale this basic box that is in Blender by default. We're going to scale it up to, I don't know, about 4 times the length, maybe a little bit shorter. Not sure. I want it to be a little bit like chunky, so we'll see how it goes. It might be better if we scale the top here instead. And then we do the cuts so that we can have a nice taper even in the external side of the figure. Because if we do the cuts before, it's actually going to be difficult to line them up properly. So by having this, we will have the cuts in the correct place and the vertices on the right place, and it'll be easier to work with. So now we do the slices here. We add another slice to the bottom. And yeah, what we're gonna do is we're gonna select the faces, and we're gonna go into X-ray mode so that we can select the back faces as well, right? Because this will only select the front faces. So by selecting the X-ray, we can select the back faces. Yeah. And we're gonna just extrude this a tiny bit. There's more precise ways to do it, but since it's more cartoony, it doesn't really matter. And after that's extruded, we're just gonna scale all these faces inward. Right? I have the WER keyboard set up, like the industry standard. I don't know how it works originally in the Blender mode. It's much easier for me to work with that because everything else uses it. So yeah, Blender has so many shortcuts, and I feel like if I were to learn it again, I would be learning it forever. So we're using the default ones. But as you can see, we scaled it in, and now we have this. Oh well, nope, fucked up there. We want to scale it in without the vertical. So there you go. There's a little bit of a lip, but not that much. Okay. Now I want to maybe select these like edges, and I'm gonna rotate them so that they look a little bit weirder. I want them to look a little bit crooked. The idea is for it to look cartoony and like non-realistic, so a little bit disheveled, a little bit like a Nickelodeon Cartoon Network show, something like from Psychonauts, like tactile but not quite realistic. So there we go. I think it's a little that looks cute, a little bit crooked. I'm gonna maybe increase a little bit the top there so we can use it for in different places. Yeah, and at this point you can see that the shape is already kind of what I was hoping for, but we're gonna go into a lot of more detail to add like that texture, that grittiness to it. And just what we're gonna do here is we're gonna copy this low poly model, which is gonna be our base model that we're gonna use in the game, and we're gonna copy it and duplicate it, and we're gonna modify the other model in order to have a lot of subdivisions and maybe use it as a normal map. That's what we're gonna be doing. We're gonna be projecting a normal map onto our low poly, and to do that we need to keep both models. Remember, make a copy. It's happened before. Don't do it. It's also good to just be saving versions of this file as it is, because Blender has a weird way of overwriting files for no reason. So yeah, try to do that. So before we go into the actual sculpting, what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be adding certain little fillets as a starting point for where we're going to be modeling. So for example, these edges, like there's no real like sharp edges in reality in the world. Everything is a little bit chamfered, you know, even the sharpest surfaces are. And so we're gonna kind of add this little kind of bevel to all of the edges that, well, most of the edges, actually, most of the edges. Some of them will be sharp. But yeah, we'll select these outer ones first. So yeah, we're gonna select these edge loops and we are going to slightly chamfer them. Like you can see, it's a very small amount. If you hold the shift button, it'll actually make it so that the amount is actually much smaller. Because if you just drag it, it'll actually create a pretty big chamfer. By holding the shift button, it can give you like that really shallow chamfer. In this situation, we're using 2 segments. We could use more or less. This is like a high poly model. I think that 2 is more than enough. We're going to be remeshing this model anyway, so we're going to create a lot more polygons in the same model. So it doesn't really matter right now. And after that, we're going to create a few more divisions in the middle in order to give it that like bent quality. Not too, I don't want to add too many because it'll make it difficult to control. But yeah, we're going to add at least these 2, and you can see that it's a little bit to the side, not too much. The thing is that if you do too much, then it'll be difficult to use in other places in the game world. So you want to kind of keep it mostly the shape that it is. I think that's good enough. You can adjust it a little bit. And one thing that we are going to do here that it's something that I feel like is fairly common to see is we're going to select these vertices here, and we are going to we're going to be beveling that edge. And as you can see, this creates that sort of diamond shape. And what we're going to do is we're going to like adjust it to a shape that we like. And then we're going to actually delete the ones in the middle, because this is going to be like a dent in the pillar. It's sort of very cartoony to have that sort of like big, someone broke it with a mallet, and so the edge fell off. That's what we're going to be doing. So as you can see, I'm selecting them to delete them, and we're going to recompose them, basically, the different faces. First, let's move this a little bit further out to give it the correct shape. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I think that looks good. And then, yeah, we can select the different edges that are left open. And we're going to create new polygons to cover up the hole. Yeah, so we select both of them, and then we select bridge, I believe. Yeah, bridge. And we can, there's a few options there. You can select the other one as well, the make new face with edges, but not there. Maybe I didn't select it properly. I think you have to select all the edges for it to give you the option fill. Yeah, that's there. Yeah. So if you double click on the edge that's open, it'll normally select the whole open edge. Sometimes it won't do it, but most of the time it will. Okay, so now it's covered up. We got our pillar. We're happy, hopefully. Yeah. But from now on, we're actually going to take it up to higher resolutions. We're going to be able to really sculpt into the object. But first, before we do that, we want to kind of define what edges will be sharp. For example, this edge at the bottom, that one will not be beveled. So we want that one to remain a sharp edge. Same thing up the top, and yeah, here. It is sharp. Yes. I always get confused with the crease. Creases are for textures, but we can look into that later. I don't think it'll be necessary for this model. Yeah. So then all those are now marked, and that should be enough for our subdivision later on. Now we're going to sculpting. It still looks a little bit blobby, but it shouldn't be a huge problem once we subdivide it. We're going to create a ton of subdivisions for it to be more usable. Yeah, we'll move by a little bit. Actually, I'm going to add a bit more detail here. It's not a huge amount, but it's one of those things that I feel adds a lot of tactile quality to a model. We're going to add one edge loop. And yeah, a little bit of a bevel. And then we're gonna indent that middle ring. And yeah, make sure that it's pulled in. And we are also gonna, I think that we probably should make it sharp as well. That looks kind of cool, you know? It's like one of those floorboards. I think that looks nice. We're still gonna add a lot more detail later on with the sculpting anyway. But yeah, if you see now, I can try sculpting, but there's not enough like detail in the vertices. So yeah, there's very little I can do here, you know? So what we need is to subdivide it, and by doing that, we're gonna remesh it. I think I remesh it. I forget the numbers here. Generally, it's like 0.01 or something like that. Let's see, 0.003. Let's see. This will kill the computer for a bit. This might be too much. I don't remember. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay, so this is a bit too much. We need to maybe increase the voxel size for the remesh. Yeah, basically what this does is that it creates like a model with tiny boxes, and it creates vertices wherever those boxes would be in the model. So yeah, I think that with 0.01 should be fine. Yeah, that's a lot more responsive. So yeah, as you can see here, we can now do some much more granular control in the pillar. Well, I'll show you. We can smooth out these edges. Well, I'll probably like fast forward this a little bit because it is just adding whatever you want to add to the model. I'm gonna sort of put in some wear and tear, some little scratches. It's gonna be a lot of work. So I might leave you guys here and come back when it's a little bit more advanced. what I do here is I generally put some details that are a lot stronger. And then I go with the blur or the soften tool and I kind of make them look a little bit more organic. Because that's sort of the way that it would happen. Like if somebody were to break a piece of this pillar, they'd probably like try to plaster over and then paint over it. Then it would look a little bit like, yeah, not exactly the way that it was, but a little worse for wear, but still fine. So that's sort of what I'm trying to emulate here. Like people like maybe, I don't know, moving around the edges, they're making the edges look more worn. The little veins that would go through the wooden surface. There's a lot of small details that might just give it that feeling of like made out of real materials, right? Ooh, okay. These are artifacts. This is fine. This is because there's so many vertices in this model. The display looks all wonky. We can see now that we can overlay our original pillar with the new pillar, and you can see where the differences are more noticeable. I'm pretty happy with the way that the pillar looks right now. I think that it has a texture that I sort of wanted, as that sort of more worn quality. But what we need now is to project this high poly mesh into a low poly mesh. So for that, we actually need to go back into our original mesh, the very simple one, and we need to do something that's called unwrapping. Some people hate it. I'm not the biggest fan of unwrapping. The idea of unwrapping, I think that if you've played games, you know, is just like basically flattening the texture, flattening the model so that it knows where to pick up the texture from. So that's what we really want to do. We're going to be unwrapping every face in order to fit it very neatly in like this square where we will be putting the detail, like the color information and the normal information specifically, like the higher detail. So we select all of the faces here, and yeah, I mean, we could do a more specific controlled unwrapping, but for this I think that it's just perfectly fine to use smart unwrap. This is not the most efficient, but it's definitely easy. And for this tutorial, I think it's just fine. Later on, we'll see some more elaborate ways to unwrap, which make me cry, so I don't want to do them right now. Okay, so let's see that. That looks fine, but I think that the pieces are too close together. You always want a little bit of an edge between each one of the faces, because when you paint them, you don't want to maybe paint like a face that you weren't meaning to. So we have to adjust here the margins. I think we don't want to scale them. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna pack these with bigger margin. Let's see. Punctus should do. That didn't do anything. Oh, I found. Let's see. Maybe it's a high amount. We go back to. We're gonna go with 0.01 instead. Maybe that'll work. Let's see. That's still not working. I don't know what's going on. That's very small. And it's kind of off the edge. Okay. Pack. Let's just go with 0.1. Let's see if that really does the trick. Okay, that's more like it. That might be a bit too much, but that should work. Maybe. Yeah, we can scale it to fit the correct size of the texture here. There you go. So now each island is nice and separated, and we can paint to our heart's content. And more specifically, we can also extract the normal information from the higher poly model into this model. So to check that everything's working, we can go here to our shading method and add in our material. It already has a material by default. We could make a new one, but we're gonna keep on using the default one. We can create like a checkers pattern to see how it's applying to our model. Here, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, it's a little bit skewed. I don't know why. It shouldn't be so stretched, but it seems to be working fine. Yeah, it's clear. That works. We're going to be painting it differently, so it doesn't really matter that it is a little bit stretched. I'm not going to be using this checkered pattern. So the part that's a little bit tricky now is that we need to create a map to where we're going to we're going to bake this information from the higher poly mesh into the lower poly mesh. So we need to create a normal map texture, what it's called. So we're going to create it first in order to give Blender the instructions to print it in there, basically, to bake the information into that texture. So, yeah. First we create the node in the material maker, and then we're going to create a new texture which will hold that information. Now we'll call it normal map. I think it's normal. And we're probably going to do it like 2048. It's like a 2K map. Like very high quality meshes could have like a 4K map. This one is would be fine with 1080p, with 1024, but 4K just for at least for creating the material for us is good enough in the end, and we can lower the quality anyway. So with that creator, we're gonna go and use a normal node. I think it's normal map. We're going to use it in the color. Right. And that we're going to hook up to our material. This won't show anything right now. We'll use it a little bit later on. You have to make sure that it's selected, and then we're going to go back into our modeling, into our layout, and we're going to select both our items. And this is the baking process, and it's a little bit finicky. It's very specific. So, okay, in order to bake our information, we're going to select both our high poly mesh and our low poly mesh. I believe that we need to select first our low poly mesh and then our high poly mesh. It might be the other way around. We need to try it out. And we're going to go down into the render tab. We're going to select cycles for rendering, and we're going to tick the selected to active. Making sure that the bake type is also normal. You can adjust the extension of the rays, I believe. 0.1 generally works fine. It depends on how curvy your model is. I think I'll leave it in 0.1 for now. And yeah, we're gonna make sure that the target is the texture. And now we bake. And now you should see there's a progress bar on the bottom, and now I think that it already baked. Let's see if it worked. Well, I shouldn't be showing it here, but we're gonna go into the shading, and there it is. So you can see like that is actually the simple model, but it has the texture of the very high polygon model. And that'll help us simulate a lot of detail that the model doesn't have, which makes GPUs happy. Fun fact though, Unreal Engine 5, if you use Nanite, I don't think you can use normal maps anymore. I don't know if that's true. You weren't able to use that before. And here you can see, like, this is the normal map. That is generally the colors that it has. If you see something different, it's probably wrong. And yeah, that looks good. That's our normal map applied. Now we probably want to start creating new maps. Something that we can like put the color in. We're going to be painting this object ourselves by hand. So yeah, let's create a new image with, I'm going to call it color, I think. Yeah. And it's also going to be the same size that we're going to hook it up to the base color. Right. For now, it's black because I selected the standard texture to be black, but we'll be painting it real soon. Yeah. So now I have to go into texture paint, and you can see that on the left side, you have all the texture that is all black. You have the outlines of all the islands on your model. But yeah, we're going to be painting it some. If you select like the third little orb in the viewer, it'll actually show you the applied normal map. So that can be helpful for if you're painting. Sometimes you don't know if what you have painted is effects of your paint or if it's the normal map. And yeah, so it's good to have that on. So what I'm going for, well, you saw in the picture, it's some sort of like very corporate bluish color. I've selected all right, I picked the secondary color. Silly. Okay. So yeah, that looks okay, I think. It's like an old office feel to it. We probably want to have a bigger paintbrush just to paint the whole thing. And as you can see, once you paint on the right side, you can see it reflected on the islands on the left side. And you can actually paint on the left side as well. For certain details, it's actually, at least I find it easier to paint on the left side, even if it is less like obvious where you're painting. It's a lot more controllable because sometimes when you're painting straight into the model, you can do things that you weren't intended to. Like you can paint the background or something like, yeah. See here, I'm also gonna fill up the space because you don't want the edges to be straight onto the black. Because if that happens with the normal maps and with the way that engines render, they might show a bit of the darker detail when your model is seen from the side. So we want to make sure that there's no kind of black edges in the texture. So yeah, I'm giving it like a very broad idea of what the colors will be. I might also fast forward through this one so that we can get to it, because this I'm probably gonna take a while painting. The idea is that you just do whatever you want. You add more details and more personality and whatever you want for your pop. Yeah, the idea is that you do whatever you want. You can go crazy. You can go with different art styles. You can project textures to it if you want. I am probably not going to do that because I wanted to have that sort of cartoony look. But yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to fast forward here because I'm going to take a while going through all the details. But yeah, it's just a matter of work. There's no fast tracks for this one, so we're just gonna go through.
Three hours later.
And okay, I'm sort of done with this. I'm pretty satisfied. I added a lot of sort of grunginess to it. Yeah, make it really look like as if it was a stop motion prop. Let us add some more geometry up here because I painted that part of the texture, but I think that just it being textured doesn't look quite right. So we can actually do this one fairly safely. Select the face and you can inset. And that shouldn't change the unwrapping information. You can inset it to where you drew the texture, and then you can inset it some more. And then I'm going to create a third point here. That should be fine. And then we scale it down a little bit more so that it matches the texture better. And then, yeah, we're going to create another edge loop, and we're going to move that one down. And so now it sort of matches the texture that I created in the bottom, and it really kind of brings it out. It matches the expression that I was going for. And yeah, that's sort of it. We're gonna... I'm pretty satisfied with the way this looks. I think we can now export the different files. Blender is a little bit unusual because it doesn't actually save the textures out into your hard drive. It specifically saves them in the project file, so you have to manually export them. So what we want to do is we want to save these textures first by going into the texture painting and by image, save all images. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go into file and we're going to pack resources. And that should save them in the folder where the project is. After that, we're gonna maybe delete all of the other components that are not required to export. We're actually gonna just go into export FBX file. FBX file is really good because it's supported by most game engines. It's one of the more flexible formats. It also can store animation and all sorts of details, but we're not using it right now, but it's still a standard, so that's it. And now this is how it looks in game. I put them in a few places, and yeah, look at how it translates to our engine. Now our bird can walk around our pillars that we just created. Of course, we would need maybe another model for the pillars, like a second one that we can intersperse, because now it seems quite obvious that it's the same one that we've sort of rotated, especially because of the dent. That should be easy enough now that we've done this one. So that's our prop done. However, I will tell you that this is maybe the method that would be more efficient to create unique props that we want to use just once. But for the next session, I think that we're going to create something called trim sheets. That while they don't allow you to be so specific and unique in your creation, it does give you the flexibility to maybe use it in a lot of different places. So yeah, we're going to work on creating some textures for trim sheets to apply to the world completely. Hope you liked that one. If you have any questions or you want me to go into any more detail, I could probably add more information to the description here. And if you would like something more specific about Blender and the way that it works, we can do more. So let me know. Say bye to Jose Cuervo. Hope this was useful for you, and yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.